One of the uses of history is to tell us about the present. For example, the USA now has a president who openly works to benefit the richest members of society. His ideas are cloaked in the thinnest veneer of increased opportunity for all, but his actions prove he cares only about lining his own pocket and helping those who do not need help. It might therefore seem paradoxical to ask whether Trump subscribes to ideas that are the very antithesis of his policies. I'll grant the paradox, but it is Trump's, not mine. For deliberately or not, he is fulfilling many aspects of Marxist theory that once seemed discredited. Chief among them is the assertion that the logic of capitalism is to concentrate ever greater wealth into ever fewer hands, resulting in poverty for everyone else. The polite term for this monopolization of resources is consolidation. Until recently, this assertion has not worn well, as the trajectory in developed economies has been for an ever larger portion of the population to enjoy increased prosperity, thereby seeming to fulfill the adage that a rising tide lifts all boats. So to understand why Trump's actions validate Marx's predictions, a brief look at history is helpful. Marx was writing in response to the disruptions and horrors caused by the Industrial Revolution in the mid-19th century. He was not the first to excoriate these developments, but he was unique in recognizing economics as the basis for understanding society. For Marx, industrial development did not just pose unprecedented problems. Economic activity itself, rather than faith in God, say, or love of family, was seen as the driving force of history. Capitalist development split society into two antagonistic classes, the propertied bourgeoisie and the paid working man or proletariat, with largely incompatible interests. What Marx did not foresee was that the bourgeoisie would be willing to sacrifice some of its wealth to pay for a welfare state that took care of the basic needs of all. The welfare state was, in fact, created by the ultra-reactionary Otto von Bismarck as a way of placating workers' demands and stopping, or at least slowing, their movement into working-class parties. It went a long way in reducing worker dissatisfaction while giving them a stake in the system. While there has never been a strong Marxist movement in the USA, nor a welfare state as encompassing as those in Western Europe, the idea that the state should have a role in assuring people's well-being underlies programs like Social Security, workmen's compensation, unemployment insurance, and so on. In short, the USA does have socialist programs that smooth the hard edge off of capitalism. We just won't call it socialism. The welfare state offers a compromise between unfettered exploitation and violent revolution. It assumes that those with wealth are willing to share some portion to assure social peace. The first major blow to this compromise was the Reagan-Thatcher model, in which big government was discouraged while entrepreneurship and wealth accumulation were encouraged to make more money available for investment and innovation, thereby creating new industries, more jobs, more wealth, and so on. With success, all would benefit. Once again, the rising tide. Joseph Schumpeter, who was the first to stress the value of entrepreneurship, believed, interestingly enough, that the logical end of capitalism was socialism. In the US, this attack on the welfare state could be obscured because the public was asked to give up nothing. Instead, unprecedented levels of debt made it possible for the government to have its lower tax cake while eating social programs too. That model has served until recently, until the more obvious maldistribution of wealth in neoliberal societies exploded in populist outrage. Trump and his fellow plutocrats have exploited that outrage while trying to use it to finish the neoliberal assault on the welfare state. The attack has to be diffuse because programs like Social Security remain popular and cannot be openly dismantled without exposing the plutocrats' agenda and angering those whom the rich have persuaded to think of government as bad. If this sounds contradictory, it is because Americans aren't really opposed to big government. They are opposed to big government that benefits someone else. Trump complicates this sleight of hand further by pretending to increase social welfare even as he and his Republican allies divert resources to themselves and the corporations they control. For example, Trump's claims that he will create a better plan to replace the Affordable Care Act is an example of such an unstable contradiction. Elimination of a beneficial program is sold with the promise of something quote-unquote better, even as what that better program would consist of is left unexplained. It is a little like taking a snack out of someone's mouth and telling them you'll give them a great dinner only to allow them to die of starvation. So, Trump has cast himself as the man to fulfill Marx's predictions about the logic of capitalism as he and his cronies grab more and more and give less and less. All involved should take stock, lest they initiate the other part of Marx's forecast, economic collapse and revolution.